Awesome. Awesome. I just love that introduction. Um, Here we are on our last live session of 2023 and just staring 2024 in the face. I don't know about you guys, but I'm certainly ready for new things, new adventures, new times going forward. And we want to be consistent about that. So let's wrap up the year with creating consistency. Good timing on this. And to get started, let's go around and do some introductions. I'll be a little different this time, and I'll go the other way around the circle. Gerald, you start us off.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Gerald Alexander, and I'm here in Glasgow, the outskirts of Glasgow, Scotland. And I'm a self-image consultant, basically, because the people that we hold the biggest, longest conversations with and the most important conversations are ourselves. And I've came to discover that we need to get out of our own ways because the person that's mostly holding us back in our lives is that reflection in the mirror.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
the help that we can get with coaches that will get us out of that rut is very important, and we'll be talking a bit about that today, I think. Cass, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cass J. Henry. I'm in Ontario, Canada, and I'm a holistic life mentor. I'm interested in the bigger picture of what makes you, the mind, the body, and the spirit. I work with clients when they're feeling stuck, they're looking to overcome self-doubt and manifest their dreams. They might be looking to make changes or start new habits or stop old ones, and I'm here to give them a new, different perspective. I work with my clients both in person and virtually, and I just thought I'd put a little plug in here. I've got a book coming out January 1st. It'll be available on Amazon. It's called Catastrophe, The Missing Chapter. So it's a story prompt book. So check me out. And you can find me and all that information on catastrophe.com.
Excellent. Shelley Ann.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shelly Ann Edwards Barron, and I am a habit coach and gratitude guide from Trinidad and Tobago. I believe that everyone over 40 should be able to pursue their goals with joy. And in that regard, I am here to help you do just that with the gratitude strategy. And what we do is to focus on saying it right, which is working on the language and self talk, saying it loud, which is about making it active and present and tangible, and about saying it always, which is where the consistency comes in. And I'm really excited for today's topic because that is about creating a habit with gratitude, which essentially is that foundation habit that gets you going and helps you develop all the other habits that keep you going. So I'm really looking forward to today. And for those of you who are interested in hearing more about gratitude, you can check out my YouTube channel, Getting It Done with Gratitude, every Tuesday. Every Thursday, actually, we go live. And this morning, we were kind of rounding up the year with some practices that will come in really useful for this conversation here, too.
Excellent. And I guess that brings it around to me. My name is Stephen B. Henry. My friends call me Steve, and you can too. I'm a published author, a digital content creator, an online presence consultant, a business success guide, and a personal development mentor. That's a mouthful. I work with men and women wishing to start or expand their online presence. I help them get unstuck and move their personal and business lives forward on their own journey of success. I'm a Canadian, currently here in the US in Kansas, and you can find me online at stephenbhenry.com. And as I often say, the time to hire your guide is before you get lost in the woods. So with that, we're going to jump right into the conversation. And we're talking today about consistency, creating consistency. And I think that this is a very interesting topic to round out the year because most of our topics have been on positive things, things that primarily only affect us in a positive way or you are used in a positive way. But consistency can actually be double-edged. It can be positive and negative, and we have to be careful of that. And I hope we'll get some good conversation going on that aspect of it. Um, you know, for example, you can be consistent in not taking action. And we all know that action is how you move forward. So we don't think about that too much when we think about the effects of activities and so on. And we need to be careful. Procrastination is a consistency. So as I was thinking about today's session and looking into it, I like to be a contrarian sometimes, and I kind of dug into little things that are consistently wrong or consistently bad. And we can defend against that by being consistently active and consistently good, consistently patient, consistently full of gratitude. So it opens the door to a lot of opposites, discussion on opposites. Who wants to jump in there? Just go ahead.
Well, you made me think about something that we can be consistently wrong with here is language. And I know that Shelly Ann's going to want to jump in on this, but negative self-talk, when you're consistently saying to yourself, you can't do this, you don't know how, you're going to fail. And one of the things that I like to do consistently to combat negative self-talk is to bury it with the evidence. If you're telling yourself, I can't, then what you do is you take examples of when you have. Well, I have done this. I can do this. I can do this other thing. And you just bury that negative self-talk under all the evidence of the times that you've succeeded and achieved things, because we all have those successes in our life. But I'm very happy to turn it over to Shelly Ann to talk about language here.
Well, what came to mind actually when Stephen was speaking, it had to do with language as well. But I remember some years ago when there was a shift in how information is placed on a resume. And in the past, you would list, I have 20 years experience, I have 50 years experience. And so you'd focus on the time. And now the shift has been to focus on what was achieved or what was done during that time, because you can have 50 years experience doing the wrong thing. And you can have 50 years experience just being there, not actively doing anything at all. And so the shift was toward, achievement and practice and so on. And that made me think a lot about that, Steve, when you said that, you can consistently do the wrong thing. And so that self-talk is one cast that it's a big deal for me, because personally it comes up consistently because of my anxiety, and my first thought is that's not going to work. I shouldn't be doing this, and something's going to go wrong. There's always that, you know issue coming up. And so how I choose to deal with it as well, in addition to the evidence, I remind myself, well, if it goes wrong, I'll deal with it. Yeah, it's possible, but then I'll deal with that. And if this happens, okay, I'll deal with that too. So it's not necessarily a matter of only the evidence for me, because it's, when I tell you, consistent, constant. They like, even this morning when I was setting up for this session, I was thinking, I hope I remember to click the right button to do the right intro. And remember the time when I did so and I clicked the wrong one, and all of that is just going through my mind. And then I had to remind myself, hey, just click the other one afterward. That's what you did before, you do it again. So, roll with it. So it's that self-talk is huge. Absolutely huge.
Gerald, how are you about consistency?
I'm just making me notes there, like about the short and that pretty much talking about self doubt and what what you're letting run through your head. And it's like, I just came across one the other day, and it says doubt results in failure, and faith results in success. And it's pretty much, having that belief in yourself and the faith that you can. And that's the same as like that quote that I've heard. What is it? fake it till you make it. Whereas I don't like that self-talk, fake it, and replacing that with faith changes the whole meaning of it. It means that you've got faith in yourself to actually achieve it and stick with it and be consistent until you do.
Yeah.
I've got a quote you won't have come across before, Gerald. It's from Adventure Time. I believe Jake says it. Sucking at something is the first step to becoming sort of good at something. So if you're gonna make a mistake or fail, or it's not gonna go the way that you want, just keep going, because it's okay to try again. Remembering that we only see the the highlight reels on social media, right? People are showing us what they've completed, what they've succeeded, what they're doing. They're not showing us the whole backstory of how many times they failed to get to that success. Mm-hmm. So if you're sucking at something, it's your first step to being sort of good at it.
That's a great point, because Steve, we were just discussing how most people fail in getting started.
Yeah, right at the beginning it can be a difficulty. And the whole idea of consistency, even consistency at failure, if you are focusing on progression and success, can be a good thing. I don't know the exact number. There's different numbers, bandied around. But Thomas Edison, when he was creating the light bulb, made hundreds of experiments, and they were all failures, one after another, failure. Most of us would have given up after 20 or 30 or maybe 50 at the most, but he did hundreds. And then he finally invented the light bulb. And that first light bulb was so dim, you needed a gas light to read by it. So where would most of us have been under those circumstances if we ever got to the light bulb anyway? Then it was so dim, would we have said, it doesn't work, it's not what I thought it would be? He didn't give up, he kept going, and look at where we are today. The world is aglow with the light that he created.
I think what made him different was his consistent positive attitude.
Yeah.
As opposed to have failed again and feeling that he's consistently failing. He wasn't. He was finding another way, that it didn't work. So he was getting closer and closer to the result he wanted.
Yeah.
And consistency in trying. So it didn't work this time, dust off, try again. And didn't work that time, okay, make notes, regroup, dust off, try again. And so for me, when it comes to consistency, I actually wrote down 3 things. Trying wasn't on the list, but I think it can work when it comes to creating consistency. Starting small, gaining clarity. I guess the trying would come into the gaining clarity, because each time you try and it doesn't quite work, you gain some clarity. Okay, I'm not going to do that again because that didn't work. So probably it could work like that. And then creating systems. So those are the 3 that I see really support consistency: starting small, gaining clarity, and creating systems.
I'll
just 10 points. Oh, go ahead, Gerald.
Before you start your 10 points, it's just really quickly, just that word try. I use it a lot myself, and I still have to, so you can all help me replace it with try, because there's some movie, Star Wars or something like that, where somebody says there is no such thing as try. You either do or you don't. So basically, and then when you were bringing up the things, maybe we could replace this way. Trying is marginal gains. I was watching a TED talk this morning, and the fella in that was saying you tweak it, test it, and you improve it. Just pretty much like in different words. You were saying the same thing, Shelley-Ann.
Yeah, gaining clarity. That's how I see it, gaining clarity. And there are many different ways toward that. You can, whether it's reading, practicing, working on it, tinkering, but it really is about gaining clarity about what it is you're doing and where you're heading. Yeah.
And being persistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think my 10 points probably fall into parts of your 3. The idea of setting a smart goal first, that's part of starting small. And my next point is to reduce overwhelm, which again is part of starting small. You want to look at, instead of your 5-year goal, you want to look at, like, what am I going to do over the next 2 weeks? And how is that going to lead me to the next 90 days? And how is that going to lead me to my next year,
Yes.
right? So you want to
Yes,
start
yes,
small
yes.
with that habit over 2 weeks. Tony Robbins says, if it's not scheduled, it's not real. So you want to prioritize your consistency so that you are making a schedule, writing down your routine, whether it's in your calendar or whether it's apps on your phone or a notification reminder on your phone, or maybe a bullet journal. And a bullet journal is a really good way for tracking what you're doing and evaluating how it's working and sticking to that plan. I think we'll probably touch more on things about journaling at another date, but if you don't know what a bullet journal is, ask Google, it'll tell you all about it. And then things like holding yourself accountable. If you can't do that, having accountability buddies who will help you with that. And setting boundaries. Like, if you want to be consistent and you're consistently getting that negative somebody interrupting you, you need to be able to set a boundary around, this is my time. I've decided for the next half hour I'm doing this. If somebody interrupts me, I'm going to have like a prearranged thing that I can say, look, I've got this half hour, I can work on this and I will get to you afterwards. Turning the ringer off on your phone so that people can't get a hold of you during that time. So be consistent about your consistency and your boundaries. What else do I have on here? Oh, celebrating small wins. That as you go through these steps, it's really important to remember that you are doing hard work and you've got to give yourself a pat on the back for that. Sometimes there are ways to there's all kinds of ways that don't cost any money. Maybe you give yourself a bubble bath, or maybe you go for a hike or listen to music, or maybe you buy yourself a small gift. There are other ways to reward yourself that do cost money. So balancing those out with what works for you. And I think I covered most of them in all of that. The only other one that I came across in my research that I had not really put a lot of thought in myself ahead of time, but the idea about working towards your goals quietly. So it's important that you probably, you might need an accountability buddy, you might need to talk to somebody about things, but avoiding people who are just going to cheerlead you and people who are going to criticize you. Those become some of the negative self-talk that we have because we've heard it from outside of ourselves. So if you're working towards a goal, let your successes be what the other people see. Let the change in you be what other people see, rather than telling people ahead of time, oh, I'm going to change in this way.
I love that one.
Yeah. Outcomes are so much more positive, and it does allow you the slack to try again. It's there. Two quick things on that. The first thing for Shelly Ann, attitude is so important in that 3-step process, and we often get out of sorts with the old adages that are there. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Really sums up that need for trial. And so many people mishandle that without even knowing the phrase. And for them, it becomes, if at first you don't succeed, give up. And that's, not going to do it for you. So we need to build the consistency on the positive side. And Cass, for your 10 steps, I wrote the book on that about 10 years ago now. Wiz's 10 steps to staying focused on your objectives. And the chapter titles are almost exactly in order with your 10 steps. We obviously think alike, if almost a generation apart. So it is definitely that way to go. And one of the key elements in those 10 steps was rewarding yourself and taking the time to do it. Little things that are there. And another thing about consistency, I think, is setting the stage for it. Not only the mental stage for it, which is so important and critical, but the physical stage, the place around you, where you're working, what you're doing, so that you don't need all the toys or all the big solutions around you. You can often work with what you have available, but you need to have it organized and set up in a way that you can utilize what you have. So you need to be consistent about that. My dad used to have a phrase that he used quite regularly: everything has a place, everything in its place. And when you think about that in terms of organizing, you first have to determine what you have. Then you need to determine where you're going to put it. And then you need to consistently make use of it, but see that it gets back where it belongs so that you can easily find it and apply it again later on. And that consistency will support you in your ongoing process. And then the mental part of it and the action part of it becomes so much easier.
I
Yeah,
was
go
just going
ahead.
to jump in. I was just going to jump in and pull pieces again from your three stages there. The creating systems. One of the systems that I think that really works for creating consistency in your life is the Pomodoro technique, where you have a list of tasks that are goals that you want to complete, and you pick one. And then you set a timer for 25 minutes and you work on that task until the time is up. Then you take a 5-minute break, and then you go back to, if you're not done that task, you complete it in another 25-minute period, take a break, or you to go to another task. And then after every 4 Pomodoros, you take a 15 to 30-minute break. And you can alter that so that it works better for you. I have a friend with ADHD who says that 25-minute period of working is just too long. So they do it in 10 minutes. 10 minutes here, take a 2 to 5-minute break, 10 minutes again, break and go back. And then they still, after the 4 Pomodoros, you take a bit longer of a break, but then you go back, you consistently go back. And that's definitely a good technique that I've come across to help me get through tasks.
I think that I've found music helps a lot for me. And so I've found music online on YouTube where it's set according to different um time frames for the Pomodoro. So you can have a 45-minute timer. I think there was a 30-minute. I haven't seen one as short as maybe 10, but I've seen, so there's this whole genre called Study With Me. And so there's music and then there's someone working. So it's like a virtual accountability almost, where you have it and it's already set with the music. So the music plays, and then after the time is up, there's the music changes and another type of music plays for the downtime, and then it starts again, and so you have that cycle that it goes on for a certain length of time. So I use it quite a lot to get stuff done. So I absolutely love that. And we have a comment that says, I felt y'all calling out my least favorite word. I just had to read that. I read it and I wanted to laugh out loud because years ago, consistency was a dirty word for me. I had to go through a whole lot to get to where I am today, where I'm having a conversation about consistency and not feeling to pull my hair out or punch somebody because especially in business, you hear people talk about, oh, you have to be consistent. And there's so much stress on the word consistent and consistency, those two words, almost to the point where you want to grab someone by the collar and said, okay, how? You're telling me to do this, but how? And that's always been my distress. How do I do this? And so when I did that habit coaching course, it just was like, mind blown light bulb kind of moment, because there's so many different ways that you can help yourself be consistent. And we've spoken quite a lot so far, just in the 25 minutes or so we've been chatting about many, many different techniques. And so while consistency is important, I really do love the focus on the practice of it. How do we do this so that it's step by step and it's practical, and it's not this thing that we tell people to make them, I don't know, what, feel good, bad about what they're doing. I never really understood, oh, you need to be consistent, that comment.
Yeah, it's a blend as well. We need to, or we perhaps should want to understand being consistent isn't about just doing the same and never reaching out, never achieving beyond. Um, Consistently, we need to extend beyond where we are if we're going to be successful. Success is a journey, and it
Hmm.
implies that we're going to gain more as we go along. So you might think that's the antithesis of consistency. How can we change and be better and move ahead and build our business and gain success and financial independence and whatever it is we're after, and succeed in achieving our goals if we're just consistent? Because doesn't that mean we stay where we are? And that's a misunderstanding of consistency.
Yeah.
Applying growth methods is being consistent if you keep applying them. Learning new methods is being consistent. You learn new things all the time. Consistency isn't just about being the same or doing the same, it is about action and moving and gaining, and that's being
Hmm.
consistent, and that's what we want to do. And if we stagnate, if we interpret consistency as a level and we stagnate there, I don't know about everybody else, but I find myself dissatisfied. I'm not doing what I want to be doing. I'm not happy with what's going on. And just sitting, as Gerald often describes it, sitting on the curb with your head in your hands on your knees is not a good way to approach life. And if nothing else, the traffic drives by and you don't see it. So you don't see what's going on around you. You need to open your eyes to reach out and then to participate. And that consistency is good consistency.
I
The
think
quote is you. Oh, go ahead, Gerald.
but, but it's always difficult, isn't it? So as we don't forget what we're going to say. So I'll just try and jump in. Now I've forgotten. Now I made that. But what Shelley Ann was touching on, following on to what you were saying, Cass, about like that cycle thing, like about the timing, 25-minute thing, and then moving on. And then Shelley Ann had talked about different breakdowns of that kind of version of thing, and then brought in the word cycle, which is like habit. And then once again, I came across like a 5 by 5 rule just the other day, and it's if something won't matter 5 years down the line, don't bother wasting more than 5 minutes obsessing over it. So, and it's pretty much like going back to what we said earlier, Shelley Ann. Where was that? Marginal gains. Like if the 25 minutes, like I think was it you, Cass, that said it, or you had a friend or something who didn't like the 25 minutes. It's all about what works for us, each one of us. Tweak it, test it, improve it to make it work for us. Get an idea from somebody else and make it your own.
Absolutely. Whatever is going to work for you, use that method because that's what you're aiming for, right? Being consistent, focused, and action driven. And that's how you get from where you are now to the success in your goals. I heard the quote, you can't expect to succeed if you only put in work on the days you feel like it. That's like my dentist who says, only brush the teeth you want to keep.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it.
I love that when I've heard that before, and I think this is where your dentist got it from. Zig Ziglar, only floss the teeth you want to keep.
Yeah.
In the comments of the one of the comments says, I am good at being consistent for a short time, but it's being consistent with my consistency that gives me trouble. And something you said, Gerald, really sort of made an idea clear to me. And it goes with everything else that we've been talking about, what Stephen said and what Cass said. We go through cycles, and so while we might think, okay, I've broken my consistency, it just means that you're adjusting to something else once you're intentional about it. So it's not necessarily about doing the same thing, as Stephen said, over and over. It's about leveling up. So we're going, in cycles, going up and moving toward our best selves. So we might be consistent in this thing, and then there's a time for change, and then change takes a moment, and then we're consistent again, and then there's a time for change, and then change takes a moment. So it's a cycle, and it moves forward like a cycle. And when my understanding of consistency changed toward more of this cyclical sort of growth development attitude, that's when I really began to see consistency. Because I think sometimes, like, we try to force it when it's not necessarily meant to be like that for most of us. And so when we allow it to flow and we understand how it works for us and the kind of cycles that we're in, that's when we can really lean into that and develop it. So, like for me, I've recognized that I am in pretty much like a 3-year cycle. After 3 years of doing something, I feel like I have to do something else. I have to add something to it, modify it somehow. Otherwise, I start to feel like I'm going backward and not really enjoying what I'm doing anymore. So when I recognized that, I started leaning into that a little bit more. And so at the 3-year mark, once I started to feel the uneasiness, then I begin to plan because I know change is necessary and some sort of movement is required. So then I like as an instructor, as a coach, I design something new, create a new system, create a new worksheet, create a new course, something that sort of brings that newness to the situation again, and then run another 3 years. Coming down to the end of that, I feel the need and then make changes again. So it's consistent in that area, but for someone on the outside looking at it, they might say, but that's not really consistent because there's too much change happening. But I guess the constant and the consistent part of it is the change.
Yeah. Change is the only constant.
Yeah.
And it's the whole idea here, the comment about consistency. Um, we can seek assistance. We can seek help with that. A coach obviously is a good solution. The right coach that can work with you that way. But you can even just work with a friend, a study buddy, an accountability partner. The difficulty with working with a friend is that you have little or no skin in that game. When you hire a coach, you're paying for a service, so it's a commitment, and you want to get a return on it, and the coach is receiving a payment and therefore is going to commit to you in terms of the time. A study buddy or an accountability partner might not be as attuned to that, but it's still a possibility to consider. And the right person can be a powerful tool, and you can work both ways. You can give and take, and so you're actually um, providing for the other person. So there is skin in the game in essence. It's just not financial, it's commitment of time and effort. One of the things you need to be careful with that, though, and it applies to other outside influences, people often don't appreciate when you are working from home, when you're self employed, they often don't appreciate what is happening in the experience and what needs to happen, and that you need to commit to the consistency. And they'll often think, well, you're not doing anything, you're not really at a job or anything, you don't have a boss. So they'll just drop over out of the blue and say, hi, I'm here, let's have a coffee. And you might be in an important uh, point in a project that you're trying to get done for some kind of a deadline, and you don't want to offend the person, so you set aside what you're doing and go and have a coffee, and that 15-minute coffee break becomes a half hour, an hour, 2 hours of discussion as you come, you get back in touch with a person you haven't seen for a week or two, and you can derail your efforts at consistency in your work, in your job, in your business, in your profession. And you need to understand that just because you're working from home, a little easier to understand now that more and more businesses are actually even outsourcing their their employees to work from home. Um, and post COVID times are changing, but it's still difficult sometimes to recognize that the place is not the definition of the involvement of the job, of the profession. And you need to be consistent in understanding, relating to your job and to your profession. um, I find that a lot of people have difficulty getting the mindset to be serious about what they're doing working from home.
Mm.
And if possible, it's not always possible, but if possible, a good way to do that is to determine a set place for your business, a room, not just a corner of your living room, but a separate room that you can use for your business, and especially where you can close the door and shut off interruptions. Sometimes, if you're a work at home parent and you have to be keeping attention on the kids, you can't do that as easily. But again, there are ways that you can make things happen. Pulling out your business material onto the dining room table or the kitchen table and having to clear it up from there when it's mealtime is not necessarily the best way to do it. And so you
Yeah,
want
I
to,
think that
yeah,
that
go.
goes to what Cass was saying about boundaries and the systems, having systems in place. That's one of the things that most people don't consider when setting goals and trying to be consistent with anything. They focus on the outcome and not the process. And because the process is neglected, then many, many things can interrupt the process. And that creates the inconsistency. And I believe that's why so many people make all these, New Year's resolutions. And then by the end of February, they all went poof because they all go poof because there's no thought to the process. I
Mhm.
want this and I'm going to do this because this is what I want. But then how do you get there? And that's the thing. And that's why one of the main of the three, and now it's five because I think celebrating wins, I I really think that is a good part of it. And I love the idea that you shared, Cass, about working quietly, because I feel like that is definitely worth exploring a bit. Um, but then when it comes to the systems, even with that, what is our process? What is our system? We want to, let's say you want to exercise 30 minutes every day. How do you do that? Where do you start? Do you start at 30 minutes if you've never um exercised for that length of time before? No, we need to start small and start with the least so that, the days that you're not feeling so well, you're still getting things done and you're maintaining it. Um, but the systems, I think, work hand in hand with the boundaries because when you create a system, part of creating a system is recognizing that things could happen. How do you protect the system? And that's where the boundaries come in.
Yeah, being prepared for what could go wrong is
Mhm.
is definitely a part of that planning. Not just what are you going to do, but what are you going to do if you can't do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Being prepared ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'll just,
being prepared there can also just be being open to the possibilities.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just don't want to invest or spend the effort on preparedness for things that may or may not happen, but you certainly have to be mentally aware of the possibility and be able to recognize it when it happens so that you can then change direction and take action. Sorry, Gerald, I cut you off there. Go ahead.
that's okay. It's like hopefully Shelley Ann can hear this. Basically, it's going back to like the consistency and how to break it up and over like a 3 year period. I think you gave a quick example of there.
Mhm.
Whereas I can see why Jim Rohn talks so much about the different seasons of the year and break it up into 3 months, you know. So that's a good way of doing it, to create that cycle, that pattern, that I'm systems, like all the words are all kind of intertwined, aren't they? And if you can break them up, and then as Steve was just pointing out there, with with a plan and purpose, and it says like how I'm always pointing at talking about a sense of direction. The clearer the what and the why, the simpler the how will be. So as long as you've got that focus and you're persistent, you've got a plan, you're consistent at pursuing that plan, building habits around a system or a cycle, time wise, whatever you learn from other people, and tweak it and pursue it. It says psychological studies have shown that we're at our happiest when we're striving towards the things that we want. And when we strive towards the things that we want and we achieve the little steps, and as you say, Cass, about rewarding ourselves, we're actually rewarding ourselves by achieving these small steps because we're building more confidence, we're feeling better about ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. And we have two comments that I really want to get to because one of them I think it it's really something that we have to consider. The comment says, if you allow someone else to define what consistent looks like, you will always struggle with your consistency. And I think that's a really powerful comment because we tend to look at what other people are doing and what what's happening out there and what everybody else is putting into place and everybody else's systems, and we think, okay, these are the things for us. But we can learn from others and we can test out things, but what we adopt and what helps us keep consistent is what works for us and is going to be different. It is not necessarily going to be the same thing. So, like when people talk about, waking up at 5 and doing these things and all these millionaire habits and so on, test it out. Some might work, some might not work for you. That's okay. Find what works for you. So you do have to do some kind of testing in order for it to work for you and to see what works and what doesn't. But ultimately, somebody else's practice is not what you're aiming for. You're aiming for the practice that works for you. And the other comment that I wanted to mention had to do with being prepared is really what allows you to be flexible. And I'd love to hear you guys your thoughts on that. Being prepared is what really gets you to be flexible. So because some people think, okay, being flexible means not having a plan and just going with the flow however that happens. But that's not really the core of flexibility, is it?
I have a really good example where I was unable to pivot. I went to a vendor fair, and the vendor fair was it was at a place that there were two buildings, and the one building was first, and we were in the second building, and the first building got most of our traffic, and then they didn't even know there was a second building until about halfway through our event, when somebody went and put signs at that first building that, hey, by the way, come to our second building. So There was not a lot of traffic, there was not a lot of sales, and I really wanted to redo my pricing, but I didn't have any signage for that, and I didn't make my signage in a way that I could reprice things. And I found it really difficult to pivot because I could only verbally interact with people and say, well, you know what, like if you purchase this item for this amount, or if you purchase 3 of these items for this discounted amount, that type of a thing, I made some sales that way. But the signage that I had on my table, I really now want to rethink how I do that so that I can put a X through it if I want, or put a half price through it for what I want, or, you know, it's the last hour, mad money, make an offer. I don't know what I'm going to do for that, but I couldn't pivot. I wasn't flexible because I had given myself a rigid, specific, this is the only way I've done this today. So moving forward, I want to be flexible. I want to be able to say, this is the situation that I'm dealing with. There's not a lot of people. How can I pivot? And so that's my example of being able to be flexible for what's going on in the moment.
So then you're planning for flexibility. Excuse me. And I think that's really what I got from the comment, and what I loved about it, because it's not saying don't plan, but we do have to keep flexibility in mind. And I know, Stephen, you have a saying that you always go to when we talk about, planning, and it's about the I don't want to mess it up, so I'm going to let you.
What is it that when you
if you're
when
failing to plan, you're planning to fail? Is that the one?
The one about the sand and the write or
write
something
your
in the
Set your goals in concrete, but
yes,
draw your
that's
plans
it.
in the sand. Yeah,
That's it. That's it. That's it.
yeah.
So flexibility in the process, flexibility in the planning, flexibility in how you go about doing it. But this is what you want, and that's okay. You can go after it, but there are different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very powerful that we need to be flexible, but we need to be flexible within reason. And um, you know, well, good coaches do not define your plan. Good coaches assist you in defining your plan. And it's Cass, you use the expression that you want to be scaffolding rather than a support. And scaffolding is access to the building outside to do the repairs or the changes that are necessary, whereas support beams brought in to something to prevent it from falling down is a whole different thing. And it's about the help that we as coaches can provide so that you can do what you want to do. We will help you even figure out what it is you want to do. Gerald often shares about the idea that many people just don't really know what they want to do. And inside they do, but they can't seem to get it out. They can't seem to express it properly. And so we help you by looking, we help you look inside yourself, not us looking inside yourself, but we guide you in the methodologies and procedures to actually find out what it is you really want. And then we will guide you. Coaches are more guides than anything else, will guide you on your journey as you develop the processes to make that happen for you. And that's what a good coach can do for you. And oftentimes people know that they need to do their own thing, but they don't know how to do their own thing. I had a client once tell me that she had hired previous coaches who told her what she needed to do over and over again. They shared with her what she needed to do, and it was good advice, but none of them ever told her how to do it. They never helped her find how to do it, and kind of left her floating on her own to do that. And she did not have the focus or the goal setting ability or the experience of the how. So although she knew what, she just couldn't make it happen. So we worked on that portion of it to help her find the how that would work for her. And that's the difference. That's the consistency. It's what I started with about the idea that it's a double-edged sword and you need to be careful. Consistently doing the wrong thing doesn't get you where you want to be. Consistently not having the solutions that you need doesn't get you where you want to be. You have to be consistent in your understanding of what it is you want, and then how you're going to go about getting there, and reaching out for help to find out how you're going to get there is not a bad thing. Doing it on your own is admirable, but doing it on your own at great cost, it just isn't worth it. And sometimes trying to do it on your own just won't get you there. So, asking for help is a really good thing, a powerful thing. And I'm sorry, there was a comment there. What was that?
Oh, let me put it back up. Coaches are trail guides, but they can't hike the path for you.
That's right.
Just like what Steve was saying there, that goes back to that. Whereas our ability to achieve our own happiness is the true measurement of our own success. And as Steve was saying, like in that comment said there, like we can't guide someone to it. It's drawing it out from within. It's understanding the clarity of the what and the why. Once they get them as a guidelines and they can bring out, like Steve says, like they all know, or we all know within, but a lot of people have trouble getting it out. What I don't really know, what I really, really want. That's the hard part, and getting that clarity in what they want. Whereas the what and the why, the how will appear. And what was that? I'd never heard that one before about set your goals in concrete, but set your plans in the sand. I like that one, and that pretty much answered your question, Cass, didn't it? I forget about the scoring stuff out. Whereas you can plan, but you've got to have room for flexibility there. And then going back to preparation, Shelley Ann, you had mentioned, I think some good people to follow is the Secret Air Service, the SAS of Britain, who are the top elite soldiers. They've got 6 P's, and it says proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. So
I'm going to write that down. Could you repeat that? I want to write that down. That's awesome. Proper
preparation prevents piss poor performance.
It goes quiet as we all type it out.
Yes.
And they would be good someday to take their ideas from, wouldn't they?
Well, I'll tell you, SAS is at the top of the heap. I worked with a couple of SAS guys years ago, and they are something else, let me tell you. So I would
consistently prepared.
Defer to their preparedness. Exactly. They're no Boy Scouts. They really have it down. Yeah, good stuff. Absolutely.
All right. So my list of 3 is now a list of 5. Right. So 5 tools for consistency. This is what I have so far. Gain clarity. That's the first step, because we need to be clear on where we're headed, what we're doing, what we want to be consistent in. And I think also how we want to feel about the process. So there's a lot involved in gaining clarity. And then starting small, manageable bits, steps that we can take easily and consistently. Then create systems, because we want to have that, the process. And part of that creating systems would be the boundaries that protect those systems. Then work quietly, because our agenda really is to get the thing done, not to tell everybody about it. That's not the focus of this. We're doing something, and we're placing the energy where we want the um, system to thrive, and the person and the process and ourselves. That's where we're working And that's what we're concentrating on. So we're not shouting out to everybody, even with the accountability, which I thought was a really good point, Cass. Having accountability is within us and that accountability system, not everybody else in the whole world. Um, so I'm definitely adding that. And then finally celebrating the wins along the way. It's not only the destination, it's the wins along the way that really keep us bolstered and continuing with our consistency. So yeah, so
I
I'm
might
up to 5 now.
I might argue that you're still at 3 because working quietly and celebrating the wins are both systems that you create
Yeah.
for success. Like they might be ones that are really important to pull out, but I might argue that they still fit in year 3.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull them out because I did
Yeah.
technically have them, although working quietly I hadn't thought about, but it makes so much sense. So I'm adding it, and I agree. They need to be pulled out and mentioned because we don't want them lost in a subheading. They are headings in and of themselves.
Okay, I just came across one the other day, and it happens to be in front of me. So when it gets down to the clearer the what and the why, the simpler the how will be. And how we're saying like a good coach helps you draw that out of you. It's not so much like, and then the comment says, no, we can't guide them to a place that they want, no, because it's all individual success. And then if you don't know how we discussed there or how I mentioned, a lot of people don't know how the what and the why that they want. Whereas if a word I came across a definition of the other day was mediocre, not very good, just average or below average, well, that's something that you don't want. So what do you want then if you're using that as a foundation to guide you? Like where are you starting from? And where do you want to get to?
Yeah, when I very first started doing some research for today's talk, I always look up, what does consistency mean? And it's about acting or something that's done in the same way over time, especially as to be fair or accurate. And so I said, who are you being fair or accurate to here? Are you giving yourself a fair chance to test out a new strategy? Or are you giving the strategy a fair chance to work for you? Like, which side of that is the fairness on? Because oftentimes we come across people with great sayings and great advice, and we read books, we listen to TED Talks, whatever it is, and we try it, but it doesn't work for us. Well, that's not good. It's not going to work for me. But have you consistently tried it for a long enough period to give it its chance to do the thing that you want it to do? Have you given yourself the consistency and the chance to actively act on whatever that is?
Yeah, people make these judgments, these value judgments on things. We all do it. I do it. We make a value judgment sometimes on the first taste, on the first try, without giving it a chance. And I'm a long time student of the law of attraction, and I hear people talking about the law of attraction and saying it doesn't work for me. And I'd listen to what they say they've done or what they've tried and how often they've tried it. And they've done it once or twice or whatever. No consistency. But the other thing is that they haven't looked at the meaning. They haven't understood the reality of the thing and whatever it is, in this case, the law of attraction. And it is the law of attraction, not the law of you give to me, not the law of the universe will give me what I want. It is the law of attraction. I will be what will attract those things to me. And you need to understand and apply that consistently for it to work. And then it does work. And I have examples in my life over and over and over again where it works. And I have examples over and over and over again where I haven't allowed it to work because I haven't done consistently what is required. And I use that word deliberately, required. There are things that are required of us in order for other things to happen around us or be bestowed upon us. And all of that has to do with consistency, and it's the application of consistency. And as Gerald talked about, the plus or minus of the center line, it's being on the positive side of averages. Half of the people in the world are below average. And so, in fact, half of the people in your community are below average. Think about that, right? That's not a negative statement about people. It's just a comment on the math.
But
Yeah,
some
just like that. We're over the hour already.
Yeah, we are.
yeah, just
Yeah.
just to touch on, I'll leave you with this. What Steve just said there: 98% of people in the world are drifting through life with no plan or purpose. This is the major cause of failure. Whereas, if you're trying to be consistent, what are you trying to be consistent for? To get you where? And then another one that jumped out was about the try comment that we were discussing, Shelley Ann. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again.
Yeah.
But never give up.
Good.
I'm
Well,
going to throw out here that Steve brought up a really great point. The effects of the environment. You're setting yourself up for success around your workspace. I was going to say that might be a really great way to bring in the new year. Effects of the environment on you. What do you think about that for a topic?
For next week, awesome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. We can cover a lot of good material. And thank you, everybody. Those who listened and shared, and those who commented. The four of us, we're so glad to be here and share with you. Please feel free to look us up and talk to us. Away from this presentation, we're here available. We'll listen. We'll share, and we're not just out here to be hired. We like making friends and communicating with people. If you need someone to help you out in your own endeavors, we're here both to coach coaches and to coach individuals who have various areas of success that they're striving for. I have a new project starting in the new year. Look me up to talk about it, and we'll just have some good stuff. So on that note, let's cue the music, and we'll see you guys next year.
Yeah, see you next year.
Bye.